So I want to begin with a couple of quotes. If I can get to the right page, it would be much more helpful. So I'll begin with the fact that St. John Maximovich said, "Have you ever observed the life of the heart? Try it even for a short time and see what you find. Something unpleasant happens, and you will get irritated. Some misfortune occurs, and you pity yourself. You see someone whom you dislike, and animosity wells up within you. You meet one of your equals who has now outdistanced you on the social scale, and you begin to envy him. You think of your talents and capabilities, and you begin to grow proud. All of this is rottenness, vainglory, carnal desire, gluttony, laziness, malice, one on top of the other, and they destroy the heart. And all of this can pass through the heart in a matter of minutes." And then we read in the gospel this morning, Christ admonishing everybody who was listening to him, saying that if you acknowledge me before men, I will acknowledge you before my Father in heaven. And if you disown me in front of men, I will disown you before my Father in heaven. And to further that, St. John of Kronstadt said, "Why did the Lord give me life? So that I would turn with my whole heart to God for my purification and correction. Remember this and correct yourself." Now, these may seem to be sort of non-related statements. However, the point of them is what we are facing, hopefully soon. We're all beginning to make returns to church, and we're all going to continue making a return to it, hopefully in greater numbers as time goes on. And one of the things that struck me about the fact that we're going to be able to return here is something that we used to use to describe other people. If you were asking about somebody and you didn't know them, a way of describing them as an okay person was, they're a good churchgoer. And the point of that matter is that we can tend to get wrapped up in the fact that we're okay because we walk through the doors. And it's been something that we have to cope with in the time that we are outside of the church, to decide, do I have God with me outside of this building, or do I not? And further, to realize that we have to define ourselves not by the fact that we come here, but by the fact that we take what we learn in here and bring it outside of the world. We are now going to be pampered with the fact that we can come back to church and have everybody look and say, they must be good people, they're going to church. The playing field before this was level. Nobody was showing up here. Everybody who chose to either not care about God, or they just didn't quite fit in, didn't matter. Everybody who didn't show up to church was now equal, and you can hate God and love God, and nobody would know the difference based on that simple criteria of nobody showing up here. And now that we're returning back, we cannot let ourselves be wrapped up in the cocoon of, I'm in the building, God marked my attendance card, and I'm safe. Because it's not how it works. We have to recognize the fact that if we are to actually live a Christian life, that what we learn in here, what we carry with us in the church, especially as we come back, especially as we rejoice in the fact that we are now back home, back somewhere that makes us feel whole. As we gather in that, we have to be ready to take it out to the rest of the world. Which is a hard task considering the fact that the world is damaged and broken right now. People don't like to hear about God because in more or less common society, God did this to us. Why would God let the coronavirus happen? Or a bunch of people sinned and God's punishing all of us. Which is quite blatantly not how it works. But the thing is, if you go out there and you say that you're a Christian, and you say that you care about it, people are going to throw that back in your face. Why would you keep going to church if you look at what God has done to us? If you go out into the world and you have to confront somebody who is upset over the unjust murder of an African-American man by a police officer, and they are hurt, and they've attended a riot, they've watched other people be bruised and beaten by other police in riots, how are you going to tell them that God is just and good? And you learn it here. You learn about the fact that it is not that we have an answer or that God's going to open up the clouds and speak it to you. What we learn here is to love. What we learn here is to receive love from God our Father, to be able to give it to each other, and then to hopefully, with that good beginning of a week, take it out to the rest of the world. And this is something that we have to realize, that we, in doing that, in loving other people, in bringing this love of God the Father to them outside of the doors, we are constantly acknowledging God before men. We are bringing that out to them. We are not hiding it. And in doing so, God will constantly acknowledge us before his Father. Christ will intercede for us in the fact that we have not let his name down. One of the tropars that we sing today for the Sunday of All Saints is about the martyrs, the first fruits of the church. The very people who brought and stood before men and acknowledged God, so much so that they now stand as the best testament we have of people who hate the church and didn't want to hear about it. They brought love to other people, and those people who were hurt, who didn't quite like the way that things were going, who let the world sort of be more paramount than God, they killed them. And it is our job to recognize that, one, you're probably not going to be killed, but your death can be social. You can have people who don't want to talk to you anymore because they think you're weird and religious. They're certainly not going to stab you in the street. They're not going to give you to a governor to hang you. But they could make you feel as though that's what you want. As though it'd be better just to not be here than to be a social pariah. And this is what we do. This is what we offer to the world, is the fact that we have received a love greater than what we can give to each other. And that we are meant to try to share that as best we can. That we are good people, not by the fact that we've walked in and shown up to church, but we are good people because we've taken what we learned in church and brought it to the rest of the world. And as we continue to come back to church, to arrive here, to be able to sit in it again, to feel at home, this is something to remember. That this whole time that we have been apart, we were not meant to forget the church, but we were meant to realize that there is something that is a part of this that is meant to be outside of it all the time. That if you don't have it in your home, you're not going to find it here just by showing up. If you don't have it in your heart, it's not going to magically appear because you came here and lit a candle. You have to love God and want to bring it out into the world. And then you'll find that it's so much easier, and that God's blessings become more and more apparent as you sit inside of this building. And as we come back, it is wonderful to see all of you. But I want to make sure that all of you can survive without seeing me. That you can survive by seeing God alone, whether the church is here or not.